The meeting will come to order. Today is Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Newburgh Board of Education meeting. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Fred Stewart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Here.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Here.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Here.
Victoria Boucher?
Here.
Mr. Bergarelli? Mr. Duray?
Present.
Mr. Howard?
Here.
Ms. Politi?
Here.
Mr. Stewart?
Okay, now we'll move to the public hearing on the contract for excellence.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Superintendent Manning Campbell, Executive Cabinet, and Board of Education members. My name is Kevin Rothman, and I'm the Director of Grants for the Newburgh and Large City School District. I'm here to present the district's Contract for Excellence plan for the 24-25 school year. Turn it on first. There we go. So this is part of the budget development on a yearly basis, and iterations of this plan were presented during the budget development this past year, in previous years, and will again in subsequent years. Some important things to understand is that this is part of the state aid in the general fund, right? The Contract for Excellence is not additional funding. It is a set aside in the lump sum that the district receives in state aid, okay? And you can see a brief history of when it was enacted in 2007, 2008, and the fact that the set-aside amount remained the same from 2012-13 through 2022-2023, right? About $9 million, or just over $9 million. And then it significantly increased and is projected to increase in subsequent years. It doesn't mean more money for the district. It just means the money that the district is receiving, a larger portion of it has to be set aside for the Contract for Excellence, for the set-asides and the different aspects of the Contract for Excellence, which I'll get into in a minute. So the Contract for Excellence set-aside, this is not a grant, right? It's part of the general fund for the district. A draft plan was on the district website for public comment for 30 days in June and July, and also a draft plan was sent to New York State, and we received feedback on that draft plan. And this is the result of that feedback that we received from the draft plan, right? So the plan for Newburgh is those categories there, and you can see the dollar amounts that are associated with those categories. And those categories are stipulated by New York State. We don't have a choice, right? We have to fit into certain categories stipulated by New York State. In addition to that, we have to allocate certain funding to schools, right, and to certain schools. And you can see, and this was based on the feedback that we received from New York State, that 75% of the funds must go to the top 50% of the neediest schools, right? And so each one of those are the allocations for the different schools. And that is a direct result. Those numbers are a direct result from the feedback that we received in our draft plan to New York State. The next one is difficult to see, but that's what we turn into New York State. Okay, so it's just there, it's on the website, but that breaks it down by school, by category. Okay, so Over to the right is the total amount that each school receives, and at the bottom, those were the previous two slides. But this is what is actually turned into New York State, and again, it breaks it down by school and by category, time on task, the pre-K, things of that nature. This set aside for the upcoming school year will support 117 positions across this district, which includes assistant principals, the instructional technology facilitators, school counselors, middle school CTE teachers, social workers, pre-K, E&L, and AIS, right? Each of which fit into those categories that we spoke about earlier, the time on task, the E&L, the pre-K, which are the set-asides required in the C4E funding. The plan, the narrative of the plan outlines the initiatives that are included in the 24-25 C4E for the Newburgh and Large City School District, right? So some of those things include the department grade level vertical and horizontal professional learning communities. It includes focus on culturally relevant pedagogical practices, the data-driven instruction, the social, emotional, and academic supports, which I know at the last board meeting, right? The presentation by Mr. Jernigans and the MTSS supports, right? That's part of that category. The high school redesign through the small learning communities, the integration of technology into instructional practices, the exposure at the middle level to CTE programming, pre-K, in-district programs for 4-year-old students, and supporting language acquisition for English language learners, right? And so hopefully as folks present and as you're approving things as a board, right, you're seeing some through lines with funding, right? And the initiatives with the set-asides, we're certainly making a concerted effort to make sure that the different grants and the general fund are all supporting the initiatives that you all have set forth as priorities and that the superintendent sees as priorities for the district. Any questions?
Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Madam President. So, Mr. Rothman, so when you say set aside, that money is to be specifically used for the items that were listed here, or can it be used for additional initiatives, or is a specific to what is listed in this document?
So the plan for the Newburgh and Large City School District fits into those categories, right? So the categories like the time on task, the high school restructuring, the teacher principal quality, the pre-K programs, and the English language learners, right? There are additional categories. There's class size reduction and district-wide programs are the other two categories that are possible, but through our plan, those are the categories that we decided to focus on for this upcoming school year.
So when that work is done, or initiatives are taken care of, when it goes on the agenda and the item at the bottom of the agenda, will it say contract for excellence? That's where that money is coming from? Just so we can get a running, so a question may come up, if that amount is used for X, Y, and Z, where is it used and what was it used for? And is there a running total when we get close that we're exceeding?
Okay, let me see if I can help a little bit. Now, I don't know about Newburgh specifically, I've only been here a week. But generally what it is let's suppose your budget, I'm gonna make up some numbers. Let's suppose your budget's $200 million, and you have this many teachers, this many psychologists, social workers, whatever. The state wants proof that you, in fact, have, at least that many teachers in that school doing like English language learners or whatever. It doesn't change how many teachers you have. We have to set it aside in a separate budget code so we can prove to the state, we actually have way more than that, but that we at least have that number that they want to see in each building.
Thank you. So I guess my follow-up question would, go ahead.
In addition to that, so essentially what Mr. Rothman and Mr. Linden are both saying is that there are budget codes that you can track with this funding. So that's essentially your question. So, yes, because it's part of our overall budget. It's just monies that are set aside. and we are told what has to be allocated and what it has to be spent on. So there are numbers that go with.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay? All right. Oh.
Does anyone from the public have a comment or question? Ms. Fucek?
Yeah, I was wondering if.
Can you come to the microphone, Ms. Fucek?
Sorry, I'm just wondering, Mr. Rothman, the slide that had like can be used for APs and social workers and that, are there specific numbers attached to those positions, like for 5 APs, or is it as needed on an ongoing basis throughout the year?
So we have the positions at the schools allocated into those categories, right? And their salaries attached to it, which is how we come up with the sums for the schools and also for the sums for those different categories here. Is that right? So we have, and we did work, right, to make sure that we had a certain number of assistant principals, right, to fit in, and based on their salaries is the numbers there that you see per school, but also per category. Okay? Sure.
Are there any further questions from the public? Okay, the public hearing is now closed.
Before we move on to public comment on agenda items and non-agenda items, the following boundaries and guidelines of public speaking. When called to speak, please state your name and municipality of your residence. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. We ask that you address concerns to the board as a whole and not individual board members. All speakers and observers must conduct themselves in a civil manner. Obscene language, defamatory statements, threats of violence, statements advocating racial, religious, or other forms of prejudice will not be tolerated. You cannot mention names of any individual board members, members of staff, or students of the district. Reserve the right to remove you from the podium and the meeting if you fail to comply. Thank you. First person signed up to speak.
Madam President.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to put a motion on the floor to bring item 10.1 in conjunction with 2.1, so it will be 2.2, so that we can move the non-agenda portion of the agenda items to the front of the meeting as opposed to the behind.
Second.
Oh, thank you. Roll call?
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
No.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
No. And
First person signed up to speak on public comment on agenda items is Mr. David Ryan.
Good evening, Madam Superintendent, Madam President, board members. My name is David Ryan. I live in the town of Newburgh. I have 3 children who have or are going through the Newburgh school system. I'm also a graduate of the system. I grew up here and also, as I said, went to these schools just like some of you. I found it effective the last time I did this, so I think I'm going to start my approach to you so I can center myself, and I would just ask that, Father God, in your name, we ask that tonight and all future meetings of this board be peaceful, civil, professional, and productive. In your name we say amen. I'm here to continue my support for holding the regular public meetings at the meeting time that you've started with tonight at 7 p.m., as well as support for having the meetings rotate through the 3 municipalities on a rotating basis. And though I probably don't speak for all 1,100 people that voted for some change, I think I speak for a fair amount of them based on the activity I've had, with some direct contact with people. Spoke to a lot of people today. I made a little post online. I got a lot of direct messages. And these are just the people that said I could use their family name. I heard from Mr. and Mrs. Garcia. I heard from a Mr. Jackson. I heard from the Smith family, the Taylors, the Fergusons, Mr. Lopez, Mr. Wilson, the Williams family, and even a Politi, not the board member. And several other people who asked that I did not use their name. These residents and hundreds of others also support this position. There's a group of hard-working, tax-paying residents who work until at least 5 p.m. For them to commute from their jobs to their home, prepare dinner for their families, and then be here by 6 p.m. just is not doable. Thus, they are disenfranchised from the process. Many of those I spoke with also mentioned that their local municipalities also meet at 7 p.m., affording them the opportunity to attend. So I checked, and sure enough, the city of Newburgh, the town of Newburgh, and the town of New Windsor all conduct their business meetings at 7 p.m. Why is the school board any different? Is it to limit participation of taxpayers who commute? I think not. I don't think it's done with any animus. I really don't. But I think we need to come to some kind of agreement where the community can all have an opportunity to participate. I mean, obviously, it's 7 o'clock tonight, and we have 6 people here. With regard to concerns about the student presentations, sometimes we have students here that need to present. That can always be scheduled at the top of a meeting prior to any public participation to ensure that students are not kept late. Do we want students to come here for meetings and not be able to have their parents here because they can't make it here due to commuting times? Regarding the meeting locations, short on time here, we've heard arguments that the convenience of the location for city residents is here. What about the convenience of thousands of residents in the 2 towns? It would be equally convenient for the residents in Meadow Hill to come to a meeting at Meadow Hill School, or New Windsor residents at Temple Hill School. Why are we only concerned about the convenience of city residents? Why does equity and inclusion apply to one municipality and not the other 2? It seems discriminatory. That was a word I heard many times today from people. It seems discriminatory that only one location would be used. There could be a number of people on Park Hill Drive, Summit Drive, Ona Lane, Nina Street that would love to walk to the Temple Hill School. There would be plenty of people on Pacer or Lancer or any of the other Meadow Hill neighborhood that would love to walk to Meadow Hill School one evening. That could also be afforded to them. And as far as providing transportation to these meetings for people that don't have cars, there are plenty of people in both municipalities who don't have cars who can't get down here either, that would love to walk to their meetings. So, to close, I'm not here to berate you or beat you up or point fingers. I'm asking you to consider all your constituents. Everyone that's a stakeholder. You got the same 6 people that show up all the time. Maybe if we tried something different, we might be able to invite a larger constituency to come to these meetings. Thank you.
Point of order. Madam President, if you're going to read that disclaimer or have our board clerk, Mr. McCoy, read that disclaimer at the beginning of every meeting, please don't be discriminatory in the speakers that you allow break the rules.
I was just about to say thank you.
I was just about to say that.
What rules did he break?
That it was not an on-agenda item.
You're not allowed to say names.
They gave him permission. He
That
stated
is completely hearsay. The rule is you're not allowed to state names, and you allow your supporters to go over time limits. You allow your supporters to break all the rules. So speaking in the name of discrimination, let's not be discriminatory with our speakers.
Is there anyone else to speak on agenda items?
Hi, Tracy. I live in the city of Newburgh. So my comment was going to be about the committees because I didn't know, I saw that it on the agenda, and I was concerned about the committees to ensure that at the last meeting, the superintendent wasn't here, but I gave out information on the Citizens Advisory Committee. I gave out information on adaptive physical education, and I was going to email you anyway because I'm not going to waste time on rehashing and redoing the same thing that was on the agenda for last meeting. As far as location and times, I didn't see that on the agenda for the 5 minutes, and so I thought that the 5 minutes was for on-agenda items, and I did not see the meetings on there as agenda items. But since this door was open and he was allowed to speak, I'm going to speak on behalf of that. So for the city of Newburgh is, the population is more condensed area for people walking. Town of Newburgh, Town of New Windsor, and those locations don't have public transportation, as far as my knowledge, that can get to those locations at those times. I know Paratransit's last drop-off is 6:45 p.m. I know that that's the last drop-off, and that buses end at 7 p.m. for those that need public transportation. As far as the people that attend here, I have 4 kids. I have 2 boys that are 9 and 10. I make sure that I cook the night before. They have their names on their meals, and they're able to microwave them. That's what call is preparing, knowing that I'm going to be at this meeting at this time. I also prepare someone that's going to be at home with them. They have routines that they have in place when I'm here or at the city of Newburgh or at another meeting, I have in place. So for those concerned about the times, I'm sure you can look up ways in which you can prepare to come to these meetings. And for the comment, for the few people that do come here, it is not easy for me to set this time aside to come here. But I come here because I care. I care about the voices of the people that I hear. And a lot of them are afraid to come because they don't want retaliation against them, or they feel that their voice is not enough. Whatever the case is, I make sure that I'm here so that I can give facts to those. I speak on people with disabilities and anyone else that needs a voice. And I make sure I look up the facts, and I come here with the facts, and I bring the facts to you, and not just my opinion. And so for those that are concerned about the city of Newburgh, there is Bishop Dunn, which is $700 a month. You can pay for that if the parents feel that they can't come here, they're afraid to come here. Your kids go to school here. So you can't be that afraid of coming here if your kids are able to attend these schools. There are other schools that are split between New Windsor, which is Cornwall, and Walk Hill schools, they're split. So I understand the Newburgh and Large City School District, but the concern of the reasons why you don't want the parents are afraid to come here, I think should not be a discussion, because fear should not be the word that you have for a district that you're trusting your kids to be in, and that you're trusting the administration and a board that they voted for. They should not be afraid to come here. As far as accessibility is, Maine is not accessible. The auditorium is steep. When I speak, I have to go all the way to the front, and it's a steep hill up that auditorium on the sides and in the front. And it's a steep hill even in the front of there. And I went to Meadow Hill School recently because my sons were transferred there, and it's a really lovely school. But it depends on where you're going to meet. Because on one side of the building, it's not accessible where they had grass, but it is accessible in the front. So I don't know where the meeting is going to be held exactly at Meadow Hill. And in Temple Hill, the distance and the length between where your accessible spaces are. And so those are my concerns for those locations. I'm not afraid of any other location. I live in the city of Newburgh. I don't have fear, and I don't think anyone else should be afraid. I think if you care, say your opinion, and then go home. If you're afraid of the time, say your opinion, 7:30, you can leave. They don't have to stay till 12 o'clock. We can watch on our phones everything that else that goes on. So anyway, that's it. Thank you. It's a new chair.
Is there anyone else? Okay, we'll move to public comments on non-agenda items.
The first person signed up to speak on non-agenda items is Mr. David Ryan. The next person signed up to speak is Ms. Sade Burks.
Good evening. My name is Sade Burks. I'm a resident of the city of Newburgh. I'm here to speak on public and non-public agenda and non-agenda items. So as far as the rules were stated before the meeting, clearly stated no religion. This is the second time a resident has gotten up and prayed. I don't understand why we have that before every meeting, because we don't even know if everyone's Christian here. We don't even know if everyone serves the same God here. So for him to continuously get up here and pray before every meeting when you clearly state no religion is disrespectful. As far as the committees go, residents have asked you to revamp the committees. You've had a school board member ask you to revamp the committees. Still haven't heard anything about MBK. I still haven't heard anything about the SAVE committees. And those two committees largely impact Black and brown students of the district. So if we want to talk about discriminatory, let's hit it right there on the head. As far as the meeting location, the times of the meetings being changed, I just went to a PTO meeting last night that used to be on Tuesdays, but I could not attend all last year because school board meetings were more important for me. Those meetings were changed to 5 o'clock on Monday nights. People thought about the people that the parents that want to be involved in the schools, but they know that some parents, their priority, as we keep saying, because everybody say they can't come here because of whatever reason, but let's get down to it. Your priority. My son is important, and attending his school events are important. So because I couldn't make it to the PTO meetings, I made sure I made it to every school event that they threw, but also coming here and making sure that policies and procedures are set in place so my son can strive in this district is way more important. So I made time for both. But the fact of the matter is, they changed their times. They didn't think to be so disrespectful as to ask the whole board to change their time until 7 o'clock at night. You're saying people are scared to come to the city of Newburgh. Well, it's 7 o'clock at night. I would think they would be more scared coming at a later time. But as far as being scared to come to the city of Newburgh, you have scholars that go to school within the city of Newburgh. You have a scholar that just spoke at the last meeting who named so many organizations that he is in this district. He also named that he is the president of the student council who was raised in the city of Newburgh. So what is that telling you? There's no harm in the city of Newburgh. There's harm everywhere you go. If I'm not mistaken, a couple of years ago at NFA, there was a shooting at a football game that my son happened to be at because he plays for the Newburgh Steelers. I still attended youth night at NFA, which is in the city of Newburgh. People still come to the Armory every Saturday for the Armory Enrichment Program. They come down here for the district backpack giveaway during the summertime. You're at the riverfront every weekend to party. Again, we have a flower shop in the city of Newburgh that one of you, I will not name names, own. So where's the harm in coming to the city of Newburgh? I haven't heard any parents or teachers complain. I'm in the district just as well. People see my face all the time, and the first thing they say is, hi, I see you at school board meetings. We're not scared to come down there. I don't know what they're talking about. We don't want the time changed to 7 o'clock because that's an inconvenience for them and their family. We don't want the location changed. So I don't understand why you have certain people up here that just keeps putting this narrative out that people are scared to come. We just went to a youth football night at NFA last week. I seen plenty of people from the district. Everybody had their kids there to support the Newburgh Steelers and the Go Back football players. So the fact that you guys keep throwing this narrative out here about the city of Newburgh being a dangerous place is very insulting, especially when you have parents and teachers of this district that live in the city of Newburgh. I got an 8-year-old son. We live on what some people would consider one of the most not wanting to live on blocks in the city of Newburgh. He just took the garbage out and was fine, because when he took the garbage out, he seen my brother's friend out there, and they play for and they boxed for a little while in the city of Newburgh on the street, and nothing happened. So the fact that you guys want to change it because your grown behinds are scared to come to the city of Newburgh, get over it and check yourself. And we already know there will be 2 people that vote no on this, like you always do. I suggest you put your personal feelings aside and let the 4 that stepped down last year come back and fight their battle. But we know they won't, because they're scared. That's why they put y'all 4 up here, or y'all 5 up here. But then a couple of the others got some sense. And we know you 2 are still keep riding their coattail. Have a good night.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Tracy? Or?
So the non-agenda items I wanted to speak about were the last meeting. It was really disheartening to hear that South Middle School's honors program was removed. And I didn't know about that until there were teachers and parents up here. And the other comment that I heard was that there was an exceptional learner specifically that was spoken about, and that he was thriving in the honors program. And then he was placed in an ICT class from which they were learning 2-digit subtraction. I believe that's what he had stated. And so then that leaves the exceptional learner behavior, they get bored, then their behavior, they get written up for their behavior. So my concern is the honors program in South Middle School. My concern is, where are those kids going? Are they going to be transferred to other schools and be in those honors programs? How does it affect their education and their diplomas? How does it affect the exceptional learners who were thriving in the honors program? So that's my concern. My other concern was the adaptive physical education that I spoke about last meeting. My concern was I didn't address you directly in the administration and the board on making sure that all of the buildings have certification, so that you can have available for those who have on their IEPs adaptive physical education. And for those that I'm going to emphasize on the IEPs, because no one should be left out of physical education. And this was stated on the New York State Board of Ed, that no one should be left out, and that adaptive physical education should be on their IEPs. So these children should be receiving physical education, and that the administration should have these certifications in their buildings. And so I just wanted to, again, repeat this, because I didn't want any child that has a condition, such as, for example, if they have a condition where if they get hit in the head, they may have a seizure because they have a medical condition. However, now they're placed in class instruction on soccer, in class instruction on physical education. They actually can have adaptive physical education. And so my concern is also the adaptive physical education equipment. Can these schools supply, do they have the adaptive physical education equipment for the adaptive physical education to be provided? My other concern is the integrated playgrounds. Are your playgrounds integrated for where if someone with a disability were to come to your school, are they able to play outside equally and fairly as the other students? That is also a concern. Another concern is when I do go to the other building, I have 4 kids, and I go to a lot of these events and NFA games. But when I went to an NFA game and I went to use the bathroom, they did not have an accessible bathroom. There were stairs to get in. I had difficulties even getting into the game, the last game, because they didn't want to open the gate. I said, you're going to bump me up this big bump to get me into the gym to make me go around? Like, I'm not having that. But luckily, I knew some of the security guards that was like, no, wait, hold on, let me open this gate. But what if there's somebody in a wheelchair that doesn't know anyone? Are they going to have to go up the bump in there? So if you can make, for these games, at least temporary ramps or ways for which people can see the games. And your buildings, some of them are not, some of these bathrooms are not accessible as well. When I go to some of these meetings, there's like, oh, wait, I'll get you a key to an administrative bathroom because you can't use this bathroom because it's not accessible. So I just wanted to know if we can maybe look into hiring consultation for someone to come in and review your buildings and review the accessibility in your buildings. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Mr. Conway?
Good evening. Good evening. I am Kyle Conway. I am a teacher in the district. I want to talk about the beginning of the year. It's been amazing. I love teaching. I just love this stuff. Even when I'm having a bad day, I like teaching. The convocation, whew, wonderfulness. I really enjoyed it. It really inspired me to say, I want to be an asset to this district. And that's what I'm striving for. As fellow educators, I look at us as family, you know. So, you know, sometimes people are afraid to say certain things. I never want to fuel the fire. I always want to collaborate because I really feel like the people in this room care. We just approach things differently. Sometimes my idealism gets me in trouble with my friends because I really believe we all want the same thing. With my students, I think they see I care. I had three students tell me, you make me not want to leave school. When do you hear a fifth grader say that? You make me not want to leave. And that was tough. I'm like a coach in the classroom. I'm nice. No, I'm good. I'm not nice. So when she said that, I was like, I feel like I'm doing my job, you know. I saw this father have to sneak out because his baby is in pre-K, and you know that attachment thing, right? They didn't want to leave the baby. The baby didn't want to leave the father, and you know the security guard walked her over. He had to dart out. The baby ran out. She was crying, and the security guard had to hold the baby and ease the baby. And it just made me think about how important our job is. You know, people really trust us. They really trust us with their babies. You know, we are their legal guardians when they're in our hands, and that's how I approach it. You are my children. So like I said, I give a lot of dad energy. You know, that's my teacher hat. My NAACP hat. In that same vein of wanting to be protective, I want to somehow impact policy. I don't want us to bicker and beef. I want us to figure out how to address the literacy needs in the district. I want to help eradicate illiteracy in this district within the next 20 years. By the time I retire, I want to say, I helped eradicate illiteracy. This is not easy, and it's probably going to take us to do things beyond the school time. That is something as the NAACP would like to see we can collaborate. What policy can we come up with that addresses this illiteracy? If you can't read between K and 2, you're probably going to drop out between 11 and 12. And a lot of the behavioral issues I'm noticing is students who feel they can't do it. they feel heartbroken, so they trying to cope with their pain. And half the time when I calm them down, like, listen, it's all right. We're going to work on it. And they're just a different person, and now they want to receive help. So I'm just putting that out there. What can we do collectively? You know, I know a lot of people are combative and they want to point fingers. I really think we all care. In a classroom setting, like, do we all care to have you raise your hand? But, you know, we're adults. We're too cool to participate in anything like that. But, you know, every teacher should be trained. Every teacher should be a reading specialist. I really see that this is really fundamentally a literacy issue. What can we do? And again, like I said last time, we are all activists because we're educators. What policy can we implement that says we're going to eradicate illiteracy in 20 years, beyond your terms, beyond our lifetimes? I'm 45, you know. If I die at 50, I know that I was part of that progress in this district. I just want to end with, I love teaching. Oh my God, I love teaching. I hope that, and you know, again, people may think I'm crazy, but come join me in the classroom. I had a teacher tell me, administrators, the board doesn't understand because they're so far from the classroom, they're not connected to the kids. I don't believe that about y'all. I believe you care. So I'm being super serious. I'm not scared. If you see me mess up in the classroom, yo, fix it. But please, I gotta go because I got playing lessons.
Is there anyone else? Ms. Fuchek?
Dawn Fuchek, resident of the town of Newburgh. So I'll just make a quick comment about what the gentleman just had to say about literacy. I did speak at the last board meeting and asked if we'll be seeing a presentation on literacy, because I know there are people sitting at this table, and I know there are people in the classrooms, and I know there are people in the school buildings that are all part of a bigger plan. And I know that it's there, and I look forward to it being shared in a public forum so that everyone can see what all of you are doing and what the teachers are doing in the classroom to address this need around literacy in this district. So I look forward to that. I also wanted to speak briefly about the committees. I'm not sure, there's been some changes over the last year and a half or so in regards to committees and how they were operating and running, and some are now committees of a whole, and others are individual. But I think it's important that they are up and running as soon as possible. Committees are a way to build trust with the community. Committees are a way to have different stakeholders involved and give a voice from different lenses and different perspectives from within the community. Committees are a way to show the district showing transparency in what's going on. In the past, we have had report outs from the committee chairs at the meetings, so that if you couldn't attend and listen in at the different level of committees, you could at least hear the discussion that went on at that committees. And I know also that some of you have spoken about, you know, that level of transparency and being able to share and have discussion in public. And so when you're giving report outs of committees, or when you have different questions that might come up from things that went on the committee, that can all happen at your board meeting, and again, opens up the transparency for the district. So lastly, I want to speak specifically to the policy committee, because that is one of the 3 jobs that belongs to the Board of Education. And I know in the past, I don't know what the status is now, I know in the past that the district has had a contract with NSBA for policy services for regular review of the district's policy, and I certainly wouldn't want to miss out on getting those things done if we've already paid a contract to have them reviewed and brought forth. But I just want to remind you that that is one of the three purviews that is under the board. So I look forward to seeing these committees up and running. At some point, I know that SAVE and audit and shared decision-making, those are all required committees. So I look forward to working with all of you and seeing these up and running and sharing with your community. So thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay, public comment is closed. And I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you very much. My team and I would like to respond to some questions that were posed at our last Board of Education meeting through public comment and by the Board of Education. First, I would like to discuss our convocation. We have received media inquiries prompted by the board president, though she could have followed up directly with me for a response. Before I share details, I would like to provide just one of the many accolades we received about the convocation and keynote speaker. Thank you, and more please. Dr. Emden's talk definitely pushed me to think about the many ways I can do better. While I recognize that unfortunately not all staff members are going to be on board, I hope this is the beginning of us having more honest conversations about how we can change the status quo and serve our students more authentically. As I mentioned in earlier meetings, the cost of the convocation was less than professional development opportunities that have been offered by the district that served fewer people. We needed to look outside of our own facilities to deliver the event once to every employee simultaneously. We gathered requests for transportation to offer that service to only those who intended to use it. The total cost of the convocation this year was able to provide every single employee with professional development for $13.75 per person. You will not find an opportunity as impactful for our employees, even remotely close to that cost, when considering conferences, courses, lectures, or any other form of professional development in the field of education or otherwise. To share a reminder, the district has a budget line dedicated to professional development. I'd like to share with our community that the cost of convocation was 5.2% of our allotted amount for the year. Next, Ms. Peterson and I will share some information regarding the topic of Board of Education meeting times and locations.
So at the last several board meetings, there has been a question and there has been different discussion regarding the movement of Board of Education meetings. Logistically, operationally, and financially, the district leadership was asked to look at what the cost and what would be some areas of concern.
We can't hear. Can you hear?
Can you hear? Can everyone hear? Okay, some logistic cost and concerns that may occur in the district with the plan that was presented earlier in the summer. So there's some main topic areas that I'm going to discuss, and then I will pick out different points that I need the community and the board to be aware of before making this decision. Those areas include staffing, building spaces, streaming, relocation of equipment and translation services, along with local standard and perhaps a proposal for some type of future resolution. First of all, we need to speak about staffing costs. As many of you are aware, these meetings have to be set up and they need to be broken down. The tables, the AV equipment, some of the technology items that are in this meeting that conduct this meeting have to be shipped and stored, and that's going to lead us into the building spaces. Every table, the chair, the mic, the stand-in, as well as a portable system would have to be moved around from building to building. So what some new board members may not know is recently we spent close to $200,000 in going over the sound and the equipment in this room to make it functional for meetings. So that would be here and would be not utilized. This is the first time this room has had an upgrade in close to 25 years, and the main purpose was that for us to be able to expand the streaming capability as well as translation services. And the main point in the design of this room was that to have effective meetings that would meet a more widespread part of our community. The other thing that we need to talk to you about in terms of building spaces and logistically, what you may not be aware of is that each one of our buildings every night is used for a different purpose, whether it is after-school community or community meetings, as well as after-school programming. Some of the locations that you have chosen are a part of our after-school programs, and oftentimes are also used for dismissal purposes, because we do have a tiered system, and sometimes these meetings, we start setting up for these meetings 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It is an immense setup for a board meeting to occur and to make sure that we have the safety and security protocols in place for each meeting. Going back to the amount that we paid for the upgrade to this room, when we do move locations, some of the streaming capabilities that we have as a part of this room that many of you at home have started to see may no longer appear. There may be sound quality issues, as well as some of the microphones may be difficult to hear the meetings with clarity. The investment was made in this room to ensure that you would be able to have clear and concise meeting. The relocation of equipment then also has an additional liability in that in movement, we would have to also, breakage could happen. We are moving these tables, chairs, equipment from building to building throughout the district, and there's also a staffing concern that comes up in that people that move these equipments will then be pulled away from department and district work to set up and take down your meeting. Oftentimes, when we do have hours that are late, meetings that are late in the evening, oftentimes you guys may hear me tell my staff to go. And we leave the room as is, and then someone comes in. That actually puts a stop to some of the overtime that is occurring when the meetings run late into the evening. So what would happen is they would have to stay longer to then step down and prepare for the movement of these materials for buildings and grounds to pick up, because those rooms are utilized sometimes at 7 o'clock in the morning the next morning for regular school operation. We also had community members during the middle of the summer talk about translation services. Translation services that I researched would have to be placed on hold because the setup for the translation services, each individual board member's mic would have a special piece of equipment that then goes into translation services. That's all done remotely. That's an additional setup for that team to do, and I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to execute or the team is going to be executed in the allotted time if we have movement. One setup is one thing to kind of memorize and work through, but every location, based on logistics of the building, is going to have a different setup. We also have to just look at also the safety and security aspect. We did a walkthrough. Many of you note that we've not been set up this way ever at board meetings. We usually flip the other way. Based on the meeting protocols and safety protocols and just trying to make sure that we have a safe and secure meeting, the locations that we choose, we have to do a walkthrough. So we have to look at the room, when is it available, when it can be shut down, and each building has a different timeline. We would also, for those buildings, if they do have after-school programs, some of the buildings selected, we are in participation with a community-based organization as well as an in-district after-school program. They can't utilize the larger rooms. And we may impact their program development on days where we do, because not sure how the building, how the board structure would be. We would be taking away from in-district programming. So the other question was asked by a board member in regards to the amount of, what are the costs of the longer meetings and what are the costs of the movement? As I said with staffing, we would have to take district personnel that would operationally be doing other things and put them here and to move these things around. So we're talking about for each individual, I would say a half a day. So on Tuesdays when we have a board meeting, I would say probably at around noon, their work would stop in district and they would move this meeting around. And I think the technology team probably from 1 o'clock on the day of the board meeting until whenever the board meeting would be set up. So we would be really greatly impacting district operations of staff from buildings and grounds and technology to make sure that this meeting occurred. There was also another cost analysis that was asked by the board in regards to how has there been a meeting increase in terms of our OT and structure, and there has. We've seen that meeting increase a lot due to the longer meetings. Each personnel that is represented here, the security guards, the extra technology, and custodial. So sometimes you may see a custodial, there has to be a custodian in the building, and they have to open and close and set the building, and depending on setup and take on, we have seen an increase in the overall amount of the overtime, and the longer meetings in November in overtime cost alone cost the district close to $7,000. There's also another thing, I didn't go over some of the costs that would be associated with the movement. It's a staffing cost, but then also in buildings and grounds in the morning when we tried to move the equipment out of, because we have to keep the equipment secure. I just need to kind of harbor on that a little bit because of, again, we have not replaced this equipment in close to 25 years due to funding. So what would occur is first thing in the morning, those buildings and ground people would either, I would have to pay someone coming in early to be careful to move the equipment, or again, the next day after any board meeting, they would have to be pulled to make sure that there was safe transportation of our equipment.
I just want to, thank you. Sorry, I jumped in a little bit. I just wanted to also talk about, there was a statement about 7 o'clock and start time and other meeting locations. I just want our entire community to know that we have a large district, probably the largest organization in Orange County. So when we start meetings at 7 p.m., the other municipalities, they may end their business a little bit earlier because they have a smaller organization. For us, we have a large district and larger operations. So in us moving the meeting back an hour, that gives us more time that we will definitely be here. Please also note that some of the staffing recommendations that we made in the past was to minimize some of the cost in terms of our utilization based on our 6 o'clock meeting times. So there's a lot to that conversation. I know that that's not the topic, but there's a lot more to it than just having people show up and go home. I want us to be really cautious of those statements because there's so much more to it.
Also, throughout the year, I know that I talked about space usage and setup, but I didn't really go into depth about a 7 o'clock start time in a building with activities. So many of our buildings and activities during the school year, we may see, and I'm not sure what the other what other structure is going to be taking place, but there's PTO, there is performance practice. They utilize the big spaces. So in certain buildings where we would have to hold the board meeting for space, it's their largest room. So if they have a large meeting, a PTO, or if they have different breakout groups for parents, or if there's a teacher meeting, we would be kind of battling with buildings for their space.
In addition to that, there's also parking. And at our central offices where we have our information, this is our home base, this is where we have the materials that's necessary and required for our meetings. Can we lug everything along? Absolutely. However, some of those items cannot leave central office. If there's a personnel folder, it stays in central office. So there are items that cannot be moved around the district just legally. So there are other things that need to be considered before this was even brought forward as a potential.
Mr. Howard?
Ms. Boucher, she had her hand up first.
Ms. Boucher?
So I just want to be clear. So you're saying if we move the meeting time and location, it's going to cost us money?
Yes,
Yes.
and we can break it down even more if, because it impacts facilities, technology, operation. So if we have any projects in the district that we're working on that comes to an extreme halt, and we have to take folks off the work that they're doing, which means they can't finish the task that they have allotted for that day, and it impedes the day of the meeting, the end of the meeting, and potentially the morning of the meeting. So think about how many moving parts and how many people are impacted.
So to follow up with that, the number 7,000 was thrown out there. I think that we could have used that $7,000 for a lot more things than moving the meetings. That's just my opinion. If any cost that comes with moving a meeting isn't beneficial to the district, especially when we're under such scrutiny for where we spend money. So that's just my opinion. And that $7,000 could have been spent, I don't know, on textbooks or it's like books, something else. So.
Mr. Howard, I know you want to speak, but let me respond to that very briefly because I know that that's going to be perhaps a statement. We plan use for monies because I know I've heard it a lot that instead of paying for the convocation, we could have paid for other things, and I won't repeat it. I think we all know. But we don't plan to use so much money in overtime. We already have a large allotment. This is just in addition to our budget, and our budget takes another hit. So that's a total misuse of monies that we did not plan for. Sorry.
Thank you. Dr. Campbell, you spoke about the additional work that was done at this location as far as from a sound system perspective. Can you speak to the acoustics at the other buildings? Because I know in the past, when we did have meetings at the high school or at one of the hills, that the sound system and the acoustics were horrible. Have they worked on that? Have they improved those sound systems there?
So it's interesting, Ms. Wallace, sorry, I'm not supposed to call names. One of the community members actually spoke to being in one of those spaces that were identified. It's not an appropriate space for our meetings because, we've experienced it when we had our meeting there. You couldn't hear from the audience. You can't hear if you're sitting on the stage. Those spaces just don't work. But I'll have Ms. Peterson follow up a little bit with the technology portion.
So auditoriums are built for sound to go out, not in. So if you're on a stage or the setup in order to keep everybody in a meeting-like or a board-like fashion would require for you to either sit on the stage or sit away. So acoustically, if you're sitting on the stage or away from the audience, you may not always be able to hear. A part of the reason why the investment was made into this room was to fix the acoustics. Because there's many times that whether when we were streaming in the past or when someone was in the audience or even board members that were sitting in the seats here, you could not hear what people were asking and what people were saying. So it was a goal of the board maybe 2 years ago to fix that, to make it so that when you came to the meeting, a community member would be able to have access, that would be able to have better control over the sound in the room, that there was volume control, that our presentations would be automated. And for the most part, the videos, and I know even with this setup, there has been changes where some of the video angles and cameras have to be changed, but we would lose that if we move around the district.
I also want to add that in those large spaces, for example, I'll take some of our elementary programs where they have the auditorium is also the cafeteria, right? And then oftentimes during the daytime, some of those buildings on the stage, which is where we would probably need to be, just because of space on the stage, sometimes there are classes running on that stage. So it would take, now that you would interrupt the class setting or the space that instructor is teaching on that stage, and that would perhaps impact the instructional day because those children would have to be moved and we would have to find another location for them, and that teacher would be moved out of his or her space.
I would like to say something. First of all, I want to clarify some people that think that people don't want to come here because they're afraid. That is not the point. The point is that we have 3 municipalities that support this district. And during the campaign, there were a lot of people that have never voted or in a school district election. And the reason being was they couldn't, they work, they can't, the meetings were very early. There's nothing close for them to go to. And I just thought that a good solution would be to increase participation in the meetings and interest in the district by allowing each municipality to have an opportunity to have 2 meetings close to their home once every 3 months. That's only fair, the way I see it. So people tend to think that this is a City of Newburgh school district. It is not solely for the City of Newburgh, but people, I've even heard it in comments, people think that. It is not. It is supported by 3 municipalities, and I think everybody should be treated fairly and have the same opportunities in the towns that the people have in the city. And we talk about cost, $7,000. That's certainly a lot of money to me, but still, just to appeal to get people interested in the district and paying attention so that they have a reason to go vote. And I mean, we just saw it through the campaign, people complaining about the meetings being so early. I was someone who could never attend a meeting because of the early times. But, we depend on the people for their money to support the district. But it appears to me that the taxpayers are the last people considered. And they deserve they deserve to be treated the same way anyone else is. Now, as far as documents, I mean, I have never really seen anyone bring big bundles of documents into this room. I mean, they come with a folder. That's not a big deal. And it's just sad to me that you don't want to treat all the constituents the same way. And they are the first ones taxed and the last ones considered. I just think $7,000 with our budget of $360 million when we've wasted more money than that, in my opinion. And this is to please the taxpayers, the people that have sent numerous complaints, that they never have they feel left out. That's what I'm trying to say. They feel left out. So, and, the people, the seniors, the people that are poor, the handicapped, the unemployed, don't live exclusively in the city. They are throughout the district. So everyone should have a chance to have a meeting close to their home, like I say, at least once every 3 months. The schools are not, it's not written in stone exactly what school. So you get the school that has the free space. And as far as the employees go, the employees have to be paid whether we're in this location or in that location. So what's the difference? And I don't know about anybody else, but I noticed that the meetings have been getting consistently shorter. And I think that's as we as a board, our new members, become more acclimated to the process. We're, you know, it's going much faster. So I don't know, I'm all for the people. I mean, we are the spokespeople for them. They have given us the privilege to speak for them, and I'm speaking for them, and I just put it out there. And I'm a city girl. I live in the city, but I still say you have to treat people fairly. Ms. Paletti?
So I'd like to first touch upon that you keep talking about treating the taxpayers fairly, and you keep talking about treating people fairly, and I think that you're missing the big picture, and the people that we're here to treat fairly are the children. And you are using unbudgeted money to spend on overtime to move meetings and to hold later meetings because it suits your big ideas and it suits your comfort levels. You openly said, it's nice to go home and have dinner and have a shower. Guess what? I commute home from Rockland. I get kids out to sports activities, and I rush here to be here because that's what I signed up for. And you're presented, this is a common thread. You're presented with the facts, and you still want to talk about preference, not our fiduciary responsibilities, and not our responsibilities to the students of this district, which is what we were elected to be here for. And money's been wasted on what? On professional development for our teachers? No, this is wasting money. Starting the meetings late, you're presented with all the numbers and how it's affecting the budget, how it's excess overtime, and wasted on your comfort. And the facts are, the large majority of the city of Newburgh residents are walkers. They don't own cars, and they walk to meetings. And many of the suburbs do. They do own cars, and they can drive here if they want to. And we can all see it. Moving the meetings is a way to silence your critics, because your critics are the walkers that come to this meeting. And that's why you want to move it, for another piece of your own comfort. I'm totally against this. I am voting, I would like to vote for this tonight. I asked two times via email. You refused to put it on the agenda. You told the board clerk not to put it on the agenda. Again, you told the board clerk to tell the superintendent, who has rights to put it on the agenda, not to put it on the agenda. What's the purpose for that? What leader silences the voices of the board and only wants to hear her own? Not a leader I want to follow.
Thank you for your heartwarming comments, Ms. Paletti, as always. I will
You're welcome.
just say, no one refused to put anything on.
What would you say
informed
you did then?
Excuse me.
What would you say you
I
did then?
responded in your email, and I told you that it was scheduled. It was pre-scheduled for the first meeting in October. That was it.
There is no policy stating that you have to have requests in by a certain amount of time. You were asked for a month to put this on, and you refused, and you ordered the superintendent not to. You're overstepping once again.
And you're prevaricating. Thank you. Mr. Bugarelli.
Thank you. Since we're talking about this move, this change for equity and inclusion, I have 13 campuses we have? Is that right? Not without Ann Street. You only proposed 3. So if you're going to have a meeting at Meadow Hill, people from Vales Gate have a further distance to travel, whereas the BOE right here is almost exactly central when you look at the map. It's a 7-mile radius pretty much everywhere you go. So any meeting you do at one location puts people at a further location, at a disadvantage. And I know they're only proposals, but that's what you gave us. This is the only place in the district that we know that every Tuesday night is set up and ready to go. How the cameras that we have, Ms. Peterson, are they meant to be moved?
No, they are not. So many of you, as you will see, They are mounted to the wall because they're expensive cameras. They have zoom and 360 function, and when this boardroom was created, they're created to be mounted on the wall, stationary, to extend the usage.
Thank you. Also, you mentioned that you don't see people walking around with big piles of paperwork and stuff like that, but I know several times in my very short tenure here, when questions have been asked, one of these professionals will go off to your office and retrieve that information. They won't know what questions are asked by the public or by the cabinet members in advance always. Public confusion, moving around of meetings. The public is used to a 6 o'clock meeting for the last how many years, Mr. Howard?
Ever since I've been on the board.
Ever since you've been on the board. So now we're asking change of meeting time and change of location. So now they have to keep track of that much harder. Court cases are heard in classroom. Basketball games are played on a basketball court. BOE meetings are held at the BOE headquarters. That's what this auditorium is for. That's what the money is spent for. And that's what the public has come accustomed to. Thank you.
Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to speak to a few items that you addressed. So we've been meeting now at 7 o'clock for at least the last 2 or 3 meetings. Has there been an increase in attendance? Everybody's saying moving of the time is going to increase the amount of people that will be available to come to the meetings. I have not seen an increase at all, number one. Number two, when you speak about the moving of the locations of the meetings, I think it's unfair to paint a false narrative and then when you get on the microphone and speak, it's not about what your narrative was. And your narrative and your followers was to paint a nasty picture of the city of Newburgh. Paint a picture where individuals who I know your followers that go to that microphone actually talked about the crime rate in the city of Newburgh, the crimes that have been committed. And I have been approached in the community by individuals who have said, and I'm not saying it's true, but that they've heard you say that your car was damaged in the parking lot down here. I have no idea when that happened. I didn't hear it, but if that's what you're telling people, I think it's not fair to the process. And I think the scare tactics are old. It's not about crime. It's not about equity. It's just about what you want. And I think it's unfair, Madam President, to paint the narrative and to paint the picture that you've been painting and you've been promoting. It's not about crime. Crime is everywhere. The same people that say crime down here are the same people that go to gullies. I mean, not gullies, Billy Joe's at the river. Come to the city council for meetings. Come into the city to support your flower shop. So it's not about the city of Newburgh, and I think it's unfair to paint a negative picture about the city of Newburgh, and then at the end of your comments, champion yourself for being a city girl. You can't speak out of both sides of the mouth.
I didn't say it was because of crime. I said people just want...
Not tonight. Pass.
No. And, you know, all I can say is I'd never have lasted in business if I had an attitude where I can't do anything. We can do anything we want to do if we really want to do it. So it just tells me you don't want to do it. And that's, you know, that's okay. I never promised people that I would be able to do this, but I did listen to their concerns and I moved it forward. I understand that I'm one of 9 and, you know, it takes a majority to get this through. But I want the people to know that I spoke for them. And, you know, if the majority doesn't want it, the majority doesn't want it. But at least I'm honoring what I promised to the people. One more thing about the times of the meeting. I was informed today that our committee meetings have to happen, and I may be mistaken, so if you have to clarify, please do. That the committee meetings have to take place on the same day as a regular board meeting. So if you change the time to 6 o'clock, that means your committee meetings would have to be before that, which is going to, is that Yes, go ahead.
I will bring everyone up to speed. What Ms. Bellows responding to, I think not last meeting, the meeting before, we talked about having weekly meetings. I think Mr. Shaw, who indicated that he represents 42, 43 districts, there's no district that has meetings every week. Ms. Bello proposed having a meeting at 6:30 on a non-Board of Education meeting week. And so I've indicated to her that to have yet another meeting on another week that's not a Board of Education week at 6:30 in the evening poses a great problem for us. These meetings, when we come to them, Ms. Bello, please understand that we are preparing for the meetings. I want to also further inform you that certain committees met during the day. We did not have meetings every week, every night, because we are professionals and we do have a work day. And when we meet and we are here for 12 and 15 hours of the day, it does not do any good for the students that we're serving the next day. It takes a toll on us as the professionals in the district. We cannot meet weekly at 6:30, 7 o'clock every single week until 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. So that's the recommendation. And when we met at 6 o'clock, those meetings were held at 5 o'clock or earlier in the day, and they were accommodated.
The committee meetings don't last 3 and 4 hours. The committee, I'm talking about the committee meetings.
Ms. Bello, you're talking about your preference and your schedule, but that's not what we've done here in the district to accommodate all of our schedules. Those times work for you. They don't necessarily work for everyone, and we have been accustomed to doing these meetings during the daytime.
Well, if you do the meetings during the daytime, the committee meetings during the daytime, how does anyone that holds a job able to attend?
I'll tell you, they make priorities and they make it's important, and so they take different times throughout the day, and the meetings are scheduled when they can come from their work. There are folks here who sit on committees, who actually leave their work or use it as their lunchtime, who've used it in the past as their lunchtime to come to the committee meetings. I also want to go back to one of the things that you said, that people can't access meetings. We are one of very few districts that stream meetings, so we don't YouTube, so folks can access our meetings live stream from anywhere they are in the district. So the meeting is accessible and available, and we know who's streaming and who's not. Ms. Peterson wants to speak.
I also think what may be helpful is if you can look at how the past structured committee meetings were. One committee in particular, curriculum committee, it was important sometimes for teachers or different directors to be involved and for them to participate in that type of committee structure at the request of the board. Some teachers were more willing to go at 3 o'clock and give a half an hour of their time to participate and then leave. If we move those committee structure, it's going to be more and more difficult for us to get people to participate to be a part of that. So it may be beneficial if we look at some of the structures. I know that the board also oversees library and different other committees where there were meetings during the day, and that was a part of the structure, that communication was held when it was best to meet in schedules, so that it could also be beneficial. Meetings at this time for people that work during the day, it's going to get more and more difficult for us to have those participations, to have those discussions, to move the work forward.
Can I ask, Mr. Shaw, is there a board policy that says that committee meetings have to be during the day, or is this a policy of the district?
No, they're arranged as the committee members see fit usually.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
So you're still in your update section, right? So we would like to have also, I know there was a couple of questions that were asked by the community in the last board meeting. So Dr. Carrera Soto is going to answer a couple of those questions, and Mr. Bear for the other portion.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. So the first concern that was brought forward in our last meeting and then brought again in this meeting was parents who expressed concerns about the discontinuation of our honors program at South Middle School. So we understand their disappointment, and we want to provide some context regarding this decision. So our honors programs across the middle schools are not aligned, creating inconsistencies in the experiences and opportunities available to our students. One of our primary goals moving forward is to establish a uniform and rigorous honors curriculum across all middle schools. To that end, we have established a committee that will review our current honors program as well as the talent and development handbook to ensure that they meet high standards that we expect from all of our students. So two committees met today, and I will be meeting two additional buildings. We'll have two committee meetings tomorrow to discuss our curriculum, our standards, our grading practices. In addition, we are inviting our parents to participate in these committees in the coming weeks. So currently, each of these buildings who have the designated H will be reinstated until the committees in each of these middle schools completes the honors program audit and reviews of our talent and development handbook. Should I continue, Ms. Peterson? With respect to our middle schools, I know there was concern about our involvement with the National Junior Honor Society. So, in an effort, again, to ensure that all middle school students access programs throughout the district, we are collaborating with our building principals to ensure that the chapters of the NJHS are active for the 24-25 school year. We are in the process of completing our applications, submitting our invoices to prepare for ceremonies in the spring. Guidelines as well as participation parameters will be shared once the buildings receive their NJHS designation. Thank you.
One more guidance.
One more, the guidance department. No, my favorite, right, as a former school counselor. So I had the opportunity to meet with the gentleman who spoke in our last committee meeting and then follow up with the conversation with his significant other. So in order to ensure that that process is streamlined, our school counselors will be meeting with our students and stress the importance that they utilize our college and planning career process technological tool called Naviance, where students have to submit their transcripts in this program to ensure that their transcripts are mailed to their colleges of choice. This information will be sent to our students via email. It will be publicized on our district website and on our school district, guidance newsletter. Thank you for the opportunity to share this information.
Thank you.
And one more thing, Dr. Soto, the guidance department pushes into classrooms to teach kids about Naviance. So it's starting already in middle school, they start that process. As far as adapted PE, so as just to kind of, I hesitate a bit to even discuss this because this came from a Facebook account that provided misinformation, and I don't like giving oxygen to things that I don't think need to be out there that somehow will find their way into our meetings. That being said, I think it's worth a little bit of time to explain. So by New York State regulation, it's 135.4, all students in New York State are required to take PE. And in my many years in special education, that can be quite an affront to some of our kids who have literally no mobility, have sometimes no ability to even move their arms, their legs, their heads. I've actually had a parent once who we tried to advocate with New York State to say, you need to look at this because you're applying the same standard to all kids to at least have this requirement for PE. So even when we get this notion of adaptive, that's even a bit of a stretch for a child who has really little to no mobility, but yet we still have that responsibility. The term adapted and adaptive are interchangeable. Adapted, I believe, is used, I don't know, it's the federal or the state regulations kind of go back and forth between the two. The issue with adapted or adaptive, depending on where you look, is that it excludes kids from the mainstream. The sort of foundation of special education is least restrictive environment. And when you remove a child from an inclusionary experience, there needs to be really good reasons for that. We do have a number of students in the district who have ambulatory issues that might be wheelchair bound, and we find that including them with the word adapt, but to adapt within that context of that gym class is better for that child. Anyone here who's experienced unified sports in the district knows how beneficial that is. To see our exceptional learners on the same basketball court with neurotypical kids is an amazing thing to watch. So once you start moving away from that, there are unintended consequences. So the mnemonic I've always used is ED for special ed is a specialized instruction that is a direct service to kids when you cannot adapt in any way or adjust the general ed setting in any way possible. We find that we can always adapt. And sometimes, and I can give you a couple examples of that. I like to use the word adaptive, which the mnemonic is give a little. I need to give a little to that setting to ensure that child is safe, but also has meaningful participation with their peers. And that's what we do typically in this district as well as others. One of the problems with adapted PE as a thing you provide a child, there's certain requirements for that, one of which is that that PE teacher must have 12 hours of coursework in specialized PE, and many don't. I actually went through some of the personnel files to just verify some of the folks who are making this noise, and they didn't have the 12 hours in their transcripts, so I don't know why they're even bringing this up as a concern. The one example that I'll give you in the high school is that we have 60 students or so that are developmentally disabled that are on our alternatively assessed programs. They almost all participate in aquatics. Have participated in aquatics. It's an amazing program where our kids are able to be in the pool and learn how to swim and to be able to do some stuff that are more fun when the pool's setting. The few that don't want to go to aquatics are always, and in the aquatics as well as outside the aquatics program, the teachers, because I actually went to all the teachers to ask, what this is about, why is this being such a big deal? They go with the kids. And again, if the regular PE activity is not appropriate, they will then adjust that activity accordingly. It might be they'll go for a walk with the child. You'll see many kids in NFA walking on the track as part of their PE experience. So we do this routinely, K-12 in this district. We ensure that our students have meaningful participation in the least restrictive environment possible, and we adjust that setting when it's appropriate for that child. As far as safety, there was some concepts about putting wheelchair-bound kids in a gym class unsupervised with 175 students. That does not happen. Again, I don't know where this misinformation comes from. Our TAs and our teachers go with our kids, and they will adjust accordingly. So that's simply not true. And we're very proud of the fact that our kids are included and have those opportunities with neurotypical peers. It just doesn't make sense. And one last thing is that sometimes I've heard that the child might get. We rely upon medical information, and we struggle sometimes to get that. So we hear a lot from people that say, well, this child's not safe. Unless there's a medical documentation that suggests otherwise, we can exclude kids. And I've heard them say, well, this child is unsafe, and then I get the doctor saying that there's no medical reason to exclude a child. So special education sometimes gets a lot of information, sometimes not always accurate, and it's really important, the requirement of the Committee on Special Education to really sort through what's being provided to us to make sense of it and then to make a coherent program that's appropriate for that child. And again, LRE is a big thing. There's no special ed in the adult world. And when we start habituating our kids and when they're young to a separate world outside of their peers, there are unintended consequences when they move out from the school setting.
Ms. Peterson?
So what we plan to do forward, if there is a comment or a concern from the community member, we will try to take note of that and then respond to it at the following board member. We want the community to know that we do hear you and in your concerns, and we want to make sure that you understand some of the functioning and practice. A part of education, a part of education is education. So there's many things that do come up that many people are not aware of what we have to follow legally, procedurally, and operationally. So we want to make sure that we are educating our community, whether it's the cost of how much something is, whether there's misinformation that we want to correct. We felt that this practice, Dr. Manning had us start this practice last year, and we wanted to make sure that we are continuing this practice so that you can come back and educate, or if there's a question and you're at public comment, that you do get a response and kind of the next steps for the district.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Madam President. So I have a few questions about the honors situation itself. I know you gave a great detailed response, but I need to ask some questions because I was bombarded in public, and actually I was asked questions by some students, and I'll share that with you in a second. But why is the honors situation not aligned throughout the district? Number one. Second, I need to ask, were the parents made aware at the end of last school year that this situation would occur? Those are the first two questions. Go ahead.
Let me start. Okay, so with honors placement, that we do have a talent development document. I think that we've been very transparent with the board. Depending on what the leadership is at our level, we are the people that sit around this table that make different procedures happening. And I know that there has been a lot of transition within curriculum instruction around some of the formatting of the honors program and the talent development document. So when students come out of 6th grade, there is a recommendation. Based on what we saw curricularly last year, there was a recommendation that was made. If we look at the middle school principals now, the only constant middle school principal that we have from last year is Mr. Phoenix. So we saw the concerns that were with the curriculum last year. We had new individuals. As schedules happens, it happens. We want to make sure that we do have a rigorous and aligned program. Based on some of the criteria from last year, I know Mrs. Soto, Dr. Soto, is working with the buildings to correct that H, but if an H just can't be an H in name. An H has to be an H in rigor. So if I'm sitting in an honor seat in this district, what does that mean? I was a person that sat in an honor seat. It was different. I don't know if that's the same experience right now. Okay. So we need to ensure it's the same, it is same, that it is a rigorous, and that we are preparing students for Regents and AP and post-secondary opportunities. So if that H is not a true H, then what is it? Then what do those programs mean? And I think the parents that expressed their concerns about a program were asking for a rigorous curriculum. So if I put you in an honors curriculum and it's not rigorous, so we really want to examine that. And I think Dr. Soto, and I think the beginning conversations that she had, and you can concur with me, are about that. I think the teachers want that. They want the direction and the leadership about how do we make our curriculum and our academic program stronger for the students that want to have expanded learning.
In the past, I've had conversations on this board in regards to the honors classes, not just in middle school, but also at the high school level, that I think it should be more inclusive. And I hope this conversation will allow something to be put in place where all children will have access and opportunity to be put into honors courses, because we know what honors courses basically prepares you for that next level once you get out of high school. But in the past, I don't think we've done enough to expose those classes to all individuals at the elementary level, because a lot of the parents have no idea, no clue what honors courses or AP courses once they get to the high school are about. And we've had that conversation in the past, and I hope that we take this opportunity to address the gaps that we have in regards to that. And I think the last question I wanted to ask was, do specific teachers teach honors courses? Or do all teachers teach honors course? And I asked that because it was said to me that we don't have the amount of teachers at South Middle School to teach honors course. Is that true?
It's not, any certified teacher can teach honors, an honors course that's certified in the content. Teachers 7 through 12 that are certified in the curriculum content area can teach honors. I think that that question, if asked about a high school and college level, that could be a little bit different. But for middle school, any content area teacher can do that. I think, again, this kind of brings me back to the curriculum piece. What are the standards that are designed within the program that are giving our children expanded learning opportunities and rigorous preparation for whatever is next? So if we're not creating a base curriculum that is aligned with the standards and then building upon those standards, then what's the purpose of honors? Then what does honors become? It's a place where we may be excluding access, as you just said. I'm sure Dr. Manning had that thought. So we need to make sure that there's some rigor in the selection and rigor within the curriculum once a student is there.
Thank you.
Victoria.
To Mr. Howard's point, what is the process to be chosen to be in an honors class?
So what Ms. Peterson perhaps won't say in plain language is that we had some concerns as an administrative body of how those decisions were made. And so last year we made decisions, but the principal of one building is the only principal here. So when we had those conversations, we had some criteria in place. So there's lots of conversations. We do have a criteria. We do have places where students should, a threshold where all students should be, and we don't necessarily believe that that was how it was truly implemented. So we need to revamp to make sure that we are more inclusive in how students are being placed in these programs. And so we have to look holistically as a district to ensure that we are offering appropriate programs and access for all students.
Mr. Bugarelli.
So I take it there is no state standard or state guideline on how honors classes are made up per district in New York?
So no, currently in our 7th grade program, no, does not exist. What I can tell you is that in an 8th grade program, those students that are designated as honors get high school credit. So what does that mean? You'll earn an algebra credit in the 8th grade. So here in our district, our students can earn 3 high school credits, 1 in algebra. The second is at a science. So we have earth science regions courses and our living environment, as we know it as biology. And the third is our language other than English credit course. So those are the 3 that the students can earn in the 8th grade. That's it.
Ms. Peterson.
And I also want to make note, accelerated and honors is 2 different things. So those accelerated course offerings that we do offer in 8th grade do not always mean honors, because honors means that there's expanded learning opportunity to that curriculum. So in honors placements may have extended units, exploratory options, more writing, different things within the curriculum that teachers and students must meet for that designation. So if those expanded learning opportunities are not placed within the curriculum, and the curriculum is the same exact curriculum as a Regents class or a general, then it is an accelerated learning and not an honors learning.
Victoria.
Is there still a curve for honors students?
So I know, Victoria, you were going to ask me that. That's why I said accelerated is different than honors. Currently, in that change took place under Dr. Farrell. Accelerated, if it's the same curriculum, there is not a curve, you would say, or a weighting to that grade. If it's an honors curriculum or a college level curriculum, then there is weight.
Okay, so now I turn it over to the clerk of the board.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the approval of minutes from the September 10th board meeting.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second. Roll call.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli? Yes. Mr. Doré?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
That concludes my items, Madam President.
Okay, now we turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Mrs. Lemer.
Thank you, Madam President. On the Human Resources agenda tonight, we have items 6.1 through 6.15 for your consideration.
Would anyone like to separate any out? Oh, Mr. Howard?
Yes, Madam President. 6.2, 6.7, 6.13.
2, 6.7. Mr. Howard, I got 6.2, 6.7. What was the third?
613.
Okay. Does anyone else want to separate any out? I would like to separate out 6.14 and 6.15. Okay. Can I have a motion for item 6.1 through 6.12, excluding 6.2, 6.7. 6.13 excluded, 6.14 excluded, 6.15 excluded. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Doré?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Item 6.2. Can I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
And discussion?
Discussion.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Madam President. So I would like to ask, not as much for myself, but for the public, to give a brief description of the responsibilities of Director of Literacy and also a brief discussion of the expectations of the position. Because literacy is a hot topic right now, and I want the people, the public, to hear what this position is going to do to assist our district from a literacy perspective.
So we're all chomping at the bit, and because when we start talking, normally everyone decides to talk. So before I begin, is there is there anyone who believes that they would like to speak? I have a lot to say. Okay. Yes.
I just have to say, I know that not everyone's privy to what we are, but I want to say thank you for this position before you even explain it. So there's that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It is an extremely important position. I won't take too long, Ms. Peterson, because literacy is at the core of everything that we do. We know that this is just the beginning of helping us to navigate our literacy problem. Literacy spans across the entire district, and to be literate is to be successful in not only school, but also in society. We understand the need to have an literacy instructional specialist to work within our K-12 confines because we have to ensure that we embed literacy into everything that we do. We know that some of our students get to our secondary programs and they have not mastered the foundation of literacy. So the goal of this position is to ensure that we have those tenets made, supported, secured, looking at reading instruction as a whole with a laser-like focus to look at reading and literacy to ensure that we're having greater success. Students end up sometimes in our secondary program, and it's a challenge because in secondary school it's more content-driven, but we have to make sure that there is a larger emphasis on literacy instruction. So this position will help us to hone in on those skills in terms of becoming more literate in our schools.
So as a follow-up, that being said, this is a one FTE position, but is that going to be a department? Is that person going to assist other people, or who will that individual work under, and who will work under that individual?
So we are trying to rebuild our curriculum and instruction. So we have 2 assistant superintendents for C&I. We have coaches, we have our teachers on special assignment. And so what we are hoping to do, what we are going to do, is really look at our instructional focus, because we know that we have many obstacles in our way, and it begins with literacy. This one FTE person is just the beginning of a larger support system for our district. We know we need more. We've scrubbed. Mr. Rothman left. We literally, this is an everyday conversation and looking at how we can get literacy, how we can get additional positions, because one of the things that we want to move away from, bless you, is providing not so much programs. What we want to do is have embedded professional development, and with the administrators and teachers who are trained coaches to support literacy, then we know that we get the best bang for our buck, because we're not doing drive-by professional development. It's job embedded, and it's within our schools.
Thank you for that. That's what I wanted to hear, and I'm glad to hear that there's a bigger plan coming down the road, because I know that this is a heavy lift. This is a heavy lift. This is a big, important job, but I don't want to be fooled thinking this is just going to be one person doing this work, that this is going to be something embedded in what we do, and also to allow us to do things that you have planned going forward that will be brought to the board in the very near future.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Victoria?
I heard you say something super important. I heard you say K through 12. So you are looking into the upper level grades.
100%, because what we're noticing is that, we've had many interruptions. We had a whole pandemic, and although some folks may say it's over, it had a huge impact, particularly on folks who didn't have access. And so we are hoping that we provide additional supports for our scholars, particularly in that secondary space where there was a lot of interrupted foundation and educational opportunities, particularly in literacy.
Ms. Peterson?
And I hope that this position will bring about literacy across the content areas. One thing professionally that I'll never forget, Dr. Murphy, as a school counselor in North Rockland, she asked me how I was infusing literacy with my students there. And I think that we have to start that culture of literacy, no matter what grade level, no matter what position, no matter what building. What are we reading? How are we infusing literacy with our students, our families, our early learners, our pre-K students? And I think what this position can also do, it's going to help our directors understand how literacy impacts their content area and what are different strategies that they can bring. I know a part of the high school's SEPT is about literacy across the content areas. So it's important that we have those secondary conversations and that we also think of best practices. I know that there's a lot of question and concern about our literacy program. Is it the literacy program, or is it our approach to how we are utilizing and doing that? And we want to have those conversations and discussions, because ultimately we do want to solve the literacy problem. Literacy is it is a human right. Students need to know how to read. And how are we doing that? And what is the best way we are doing that fiscally, responsibly for our community? Our community stays. Our community is here. So if we are not investing in making literate citizens, what does that do for our community? And I think that for me, and that's why it's bigger than just this one position. This impacts our community when we don't have community members that can read. So it's a bigger issue.
Thank you.
Roll call?
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Item 6.7, can I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Discussion?
On discussion.
Mr. Howard?
Yes, could someone please talk about the after-school alternative program? Been having a lot of questions about it. Want to make sure that the students that are assigned there, I've had a few parents approach me, and their biggest concern was that their child stayed on task, credit-wise, especially people that were put there for long-term suspensions, for long, 1, 2, 3 months. What are we doing to ensure that those students are getting what they need to stay on task, number one? And also, are we monitoring the attendance? I know one of my colleagues from the past, Mr. Levenstein, had always asked that question, and I was wondering if we could address that this evening. Are we taking the attendance? And if children aren't attending as they are supposed to, what are we doing to ensure that the parents understand the importance that they must have good attendance so that when they transition back into the school, they're not behind?
So as it relates to alternative instruction for a student who has been suspended, we are mandated by the state to provide 3 hours of instruction. Parents and students are informed that it is a mandate for their child to attend alternative instruction. It is not optional, it is a mandate. We do take attendance. We do reach out to the teachers to get the work. Tutoring and reteaching is provided. The individual who runs the program is quite thorough. She was away from it last year. She is back, and I am thanking God that she is back because she is phenomenal. She reaches out to the parents. She does home visits. She will go and get the students and bring them to the program, which is so phenomenal because that's who she is. She really does support the students. She wants them to excel, and she is instrumental in getting them back on track, even though they may, be there due to some ill consequences. So yes, attendance is taken. Yes, we want to keep them on track. Because a student has been suspended does not mean we throw them away or give up on them. We still have to make sure that they are welcomed back into school and that they are provided with the resources that they need. I think one of the biggest obstacles we have is that parents and students just think that it's optional. We actually send buses to pick up the students to make sure that they can attend as well. Did I answer your question, sir?
Yes, and one more thing I want to ask in regards to that. So we know the importance of children being where they're supposed to be. If you could pick a number, percentage-wise, what would you say the percentage or the daily attendance rate for students that are in the alternative program is? If you can't, I understand that, and you can probably get it for me, but if you can't tap that number now, it's okay. But also, I needed to ask, I know we had this conversation in the past with regard to alternative after-school programming, and there was a conversation around having a meeting with the student and the parents before they get into it, talk about the expectations, but the more important meeting is the reentry meeting when they get back in school, what the expectations are, and what we can do to prevent this from happening again. Is that taking place?
So we're going to call them welcome back meetings because reentry is another facility. No, it's okay because we use that term and we want to say welcome back because we want to bring you back. We want to get away from that term reentry. So when the student does return to school after a suspension, there is a meeting with the principal and or his designee, usually a school counselor. A teacher could be present as well, social worker, where we talk about what goals are we going to set, what do you want to focus on when you're coming back, who can you speak to if you feel like you're going to make a not so great decision. So we try to support students with that as well. We try to instill for students to focus on the education and not get wrapped up in the things that they don't need to get wrapped up into and really be supportive. That's the goal and that's the hope.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. Mac.
You're welcome.
Okay. I wanted to also just, make everyone aware. I know that we need to perhaps help the community in terms of where those questions should go. We don't necessarily want you guys, if you hear something, just let us know immediately, or just direct them to us so that they can have real-time responses, that they're not waiting for us at a board meeting. So if anyone has an inquiry, please feel free to have them reach out to the principal and/or one of us, or certainly forward that to us. I know that some of you do that, which is very beneficial. That way we can help the families and the parents immediately, because it is a big place and it's hard to navigate. And, oftentimes the community doesn't know who does what. So we're here to help. Just let us know immediately or as soon as you can, and we'll try to help so they're not waiting for that answer.
Ms. Peterson?
I think one of the big philosophy changes in switch with alternative ed is to call it alternative ed, because I think that the way the district was approaching it previously, I think, had good intent and was trying to make sure that students engaged in it, but the mandatory part, people didn't realize that that was mandatory. And I know that in my prior conversation to the board, we talked about how the lack of participation in this program is also impacting our chronic absenteeism rate. So it is important. So we did definitely have those conversations with building level administration during our retreat this year to talk about the necessity of students participating. We also reviewed it again. They came back with concerns, and we're trying to just make sure that students are aware that this is a mandated program, that the intent is for them to attend. If there's a concern about them attending, where those questions can be addressed.
Mr. Bugarelli?
Thank you. To expound on that, or just dig deeper, and excuse me if I don't understand the way this works, the alternative instruction program, are the attendance policies still the same for that program? Or is it a separate thing for grading for after-school activities if they're even available to these students?
Ms. Peterson?
So when a student gets suspended from school, this is a mandated program. Attendance in that program, if attended, does not count against them. It counts that they attended school that day. So their school day, instead of being a 7-hour school day, is a 3-hour school day in participation. So that is why we try to encourage students to attend, because it does have an impact on your attendance when you do or you don't. And that is why the district also is having a concern with chronic absenteeism. Because if a student that is suspended for 5 days and decides to not attend anything, then that's 5 days absent. But if they attend the alternative instruction program, that's 5 days counted as present. So we are really trying to work with our parents and our students to attend our alternative instruction programming.
Roll call.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Item 6.13, can I have a motion?
Second.
And discussion. Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Madam President. So my question is basically to talk about how great this program is, but more so, what are the plans of the district to drill this down? And when I say drill down, we're doing an incredible job at the high school level with the kids, but the big impact, and I've talked to people throughout the country because I work with different organizations, that hard work and heavy lift is really done at the elementary, middle school level. We're doing it at the high school level. We're doing a great job. But what are the plans of the district going forward to get some of this work down to the elementary schools and the middle school level? Because I think that is sorely needed. And when they do see some of the things that we're doing at the high school level, some of the kids are like anxious about wanting to be a part of this. And is there any conversation or any discussion about drilling this down?
Oh, Mr. Howard. So, as you know, so we have 3 grants with My Brother's Keeper. One is a family and community engagement grant. It is very specific. It deals with family and community engagement. Another grant that we have with My Brother's Keeper is the Challenge Grant. We had an iteration of the Challenge Grant that expired in 2022. When that grant expired and the new iteration of the grant came up, it became very scripted. So there are 6 milestones: college and career ready, reading on grade level by 3rd grade, financial literacy, Newburgh Basics, family and community engagement. Those milestones are covered in different grants. Also, mentorship, leadership, service, and community. So each grant covers some of those milestones, but not all of them. With the new iteration of the challenge grant, it was less money, but it had to have 1, 2, or 3 focuses: financial literacy, reading on grade level by 3rd grade, Newburgh Basics. That's all we can support with the grant, unfortunately. We cannot do My Sister's Keeper program. We have to be very careful with what we do and how we support the students, and after-school programs and supports kind of ties our hands. And then there's the Fellows program. The Fellows program is amazing with My Brother's Keeper, but however, it's $23,500 exactly. I'm sorry, $23,582. And it supports our 4 MBK fellows, which are phenomenal. You've met some of them, as well as the 4 mentors who support them. That money can only be used for those fellows. That's it, nothing else. So when we talk about after-school programs, when we talk about reaching back to the elementary school, when we talk about reaching back to the middle school, long and short, I need money. I keep looking, to Bill Gates, to Amanda Gates. I have a 2-day meeting this week with the Obama Foundation organization to make us a convening MBK community, which would be amazing and it'll be great. But all my ask is, can we have more money? Because I want to do more for the kids here. So Phil, I echo you, I heart you. We really do need to have more supports. It's just trying to find the funding for it. With every single after-school program and iteration that we do for MBK, we have to find a way to support it. This year, our MBK fellows, our 4 gentlemen, will be reaching back at the middle school level and the elementary level. They're excited about it, and we will do it, and we will find ways to support it. And we're just going to do what we need to do, and we'll figure it out. But we do want to, look for volunteers in the community that can support us as well. We have a really great volunteer mentor at West who goes in with the boys every single Friday, and he's phenomenal. I need to clone him in 10 other places. So there will be a call for men to join, for men to sign up, and it is something that we want to do as a community. So I'll say it that way.
Okay, and just dovetailing on that, I think we need, as a community, as a district, understand the importance of what this program is doing for young boys of color. And a lot of times people get upset with me and they think that I'm just here for the boys of color. No, that is not the case at all. My thing is I want the young boys of color to catch up with the other boys. And I support all of our young people, but our young boys of color are lagging behind. And this program has shown an efficacy to make that level the playing field, and it really does. And we as a board, as a district, as a community, need to find ways to find sustainability of this program. Those grants, they're grants, and they won't, I hope they will be there forever, but we have to find a way to build it in what we do as a district to ensure that those young boys get what they need to get across Academy Field. And I just got to say, the last 5 or 6 years since we started that program, it has really impacted some of the kids, because when we initially started, we did some of the work at the middle schools, and some of those kids now are seniors, 5 years, 6 years later, and they're incredible in what they talk about, what they were able to do with the program as 7th graders, 8th graders, and now what they're doing at the high school level. And as seniors and as juniors, they want to go back and help at the lower school, at the lower levels, because they know what it meant to them. And I think that we as a district, as a community, as just caregivers, need to understand the importance of making sure that those kids get everything that they need to be eligible to walk across Academy Field, to become productive citizens in society. People downplay that, but it's real. It's really real what that program is doing for these young boys. Thank you.
Victoria?
So I just want to say one thing that I noticed at graduation about an MBK. I'm not sure if he was a fellow, but it was 175 degrees on that field that day.
He is a fellow. He had that jacket on.
That's what I was going to say. He wore that jacket so proud. And they do look to you for guidance. I have seen it, and I've seen it when I've toured the schools. But that sense of pride is what I think we all have. And I just wanted to note that that one student, he was in that jacket. I was sweating, and it was hot, and that he was proud. So that was nice to see. So I do love the program. I saw it for myself at West. I hear from the kids all the time, and it's important to keep that positivity going because there's a lot of negativity. And I do hope in the future maybe we can extend it to young girls. Expand, you know. But I just want to say that I don't know his name, but he was wearing that jacket proud, and it was nice.
Roll call.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli? Yes. Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Item 6.14. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And discussion. I would just like to know when these contracts were posted on the board, on BoardDocs, because I looked at them, I looked last night, there were no names, there was no amount. Ms. Limer?
For this particular position, the interviews just happened this afternoon, starting at 3 o'clock through 5 o'clock. So it was a late ad.
Mr. McCoy?
They went out as TBD on Friday, and the TBD contract was attached. So what got uploaded today was just the name and the salary, but the contract was attached for public content since last Friday.
Mr. Shaw, does that meet the requirements for public notice?
It's not uncommon to have a resolution where an individual's name is added to it. It's important that the position is of notice, not necessarily the name of the individual who will be filling it.
Okay. Anyone else? Roll call.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Okay. Resolution 6.15, can I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
Okay. And discussion? Okay. Do we have a humanities department? Or a curriculum, a humanities curriculum? Anyone? Oh, Ms. Peterson?
So the humanities is, the term humanities is an academic term that encompasses English, history, performing arts, all different areas. So this position, I will lead to C&I to talk a little bit about what this person would cover, but it's an academic term that is used to, usually we say the humanities are more of the history, literature, grammar, writing, but anyone from C&I that wants to, or Dr. Manning.
And also to add that, you know, in the entire goal of teaching across the content area, this position is one that ties in literacy or core content across the continuity and the continuum, so we can keep everything in terms of thematically together as an approach to teaching and educating. So English, social studies, and the other ancillary programs all are coordinated with this Director of Humanities position.
I would also like to add that this humanities position plays a crucial role in our academic and cultural institution and goes along with what Mr. Howard stated earlier, that literacy position is a heavy lift. So having this humanities director can be that champion right? That promotes the value of disciplines such as what Ms. Peterson mentioned, history, philosophy, literature, language, art. It really emphasizes the role of developing critical thinking, empathy, and cultural understanding. I can go on. Just,
Thank you.
but hopefully that is suffice.
Anyone else? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Stewart? Yes. Ms. Christine Bello?
No.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
No.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
That concludes my items, Madam President.
Thank you. And now I turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent of Finance. Ms. Peterson.
I'm sorry, Mr. Linden had to go. So I'm in once again. So items 7.1 to 7.7 for your consent.
Does anyone want to separate any out? No. Oh, Mr. Bugarelli?
Separate out 7.6, please.
Sure. Okay. Can I have a motion on Resolution 7.1 through 7.7 minus 7.6?
So moved.
And a second? Roll call.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Turned it off. Resolution 7.6. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Oh,
Whoever had it.
Mr. Bugarelli.
Thank you. So I know this is not necessarily a finance question, but I guess the right people are here. Why did we go out of district for this? Is it more cost effective to go out to district for this? We don't have these facilities ourselves, or we don't have these capabilities ourselves. That's why we went out of district, I imagine.
Yes, and I know Mr. Bear would probably, I'm going to start, and there may be more that he would like to add. So with each BOCES program, there's usually satellite programs for exceptional learners that cannot be, that need a more restrictive or a specialized program based on those meetings. These are associated costs with that, with the program and the service contract with Rockland BOCES. You will see many of these from time to time from several different BOCES operations for their program. So when we have a student that is deemed out of district, there's a separate associated cost that goes with that student as they go out of district that the district must comply with. I don't know if there's anything else, Mr. Bear, that you want to add?
Just that it further emphasizes why it's so important that we continue to build programs from within. We do always seek ways to have our students be in Newburgh. As I pointed out, we created a program at Gardentown for very developmentally disabled children, non-ambulatory, 2 years ago. And we started 2 new programs this year, one at Temple, one at Fostertown, for those reasons, because we recognize these costs are quite prohibitive, and we can do it, in my opinion, better and more cost effective. So stay tuned.
Roll call?
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes. I will now turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Secondary.
Thank you, Madam President. The Curriculum and Instruction Division presents Agenda Item 8.1 for the Board's consideration and consent.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes. Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my items for this evening.
Thank you. Okay, so it's secondary. Okay. I'll turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent of Exceptional Learners, Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Madam President. Exceptional Learners has 2 items, 9.1 and 9.2, on the consent agenda for the board's consideration.
Can I have a motion? And a
Second.
Thank you. And discussion? Okay, roll call.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items.
Okay. Oh, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?